I was working from home recently and got a knock at the door just before lunchtime. It turned out that a load of watch parts I'd ordered had arrived, and I thought instead of taking lunch and eating, I'll challenge myself to see if I can assemble a watch in my lunch hour, so 60 minutes. Watch ahead to see how far I get. These are the parts, and I'm going to be using a PT5000 movement. Then I'm going to be using a black dial, a rose gold and silver case, which has a bracelet that matches, some rose gold hands from a different supplier, but it looks like they're very similar. And then we've got this ring here that is black and brown with also rose gold numerals on it. So I'm going to make a start. You can see I've taken the movement out its case. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dial on. So just get the dial out. And what you find with these dials is they usually come with some extra legs. So I might not need all of these. So it seems like there's only one peg we don't need, and that is this one here. So I'm going to cut that off and sand it down so it can sit flush against the movement. Right, so this is a PT5000 movement, and we need to install this, which is the hour wheel, onto the movement here, because without that we will not be able to put our hour hand on. Now this is held in by the dial itself. So the dial that we've now cut to size, we will fit on, and then there's a washer, which is this little bit here, that will stop them from rubbing. So just need to put it in place. I'm going to use some tweezers and just hover it over and drop it in the right place. There we go. And the way we know it is in the right place is if I wind the movement, it should move, and you can see that it is moving. So what I'm now going to do is take this washer, and it needs to be like an upside down U. So if you see it slightly curved, that curve needs to be pointing upwards. And push it down. There we go. So what I can do is I can now install the dial over this. So if this doesn't seem appealing to you, what I would recommend is get a Seiko NH35 movement, because the hour wheel will already be installed. So we've got our dial, and I've already trimmed off the pegs that we don't need. And we're just going to line them up and drop it into place. There's one here and one here. And now we just give it a bit of a push. So there we have it. We can see we've got our hour wheel installed, and then the washer is just behind that. So now that the dial is on, we want to put it in the time setting position, and we want to advance the hands until the date changes, and then we know that that is midnight. There it is, that's midnight. So now we found midnight, we can put the hands on in the midnight position. So we want to stick it on at midnight. So as you can see, I've transferred it off the cushion to a movement holder because it's a little bit easier to position. Okay, so that is midnight, and we're just going to gently push the hand on. Here we go. And that's it. So now we're going to do the same with the minute hand and just line it into place. Exactly the same as before. Once it's vaguely in the right place, I'll fine tune it and give it a push to make sure it's on. And now we've got the minute and the hour hand installed. We want to just give it a wind and check that they're not going to be touching each other, and they're not. And then we are going to install the second hand. I think it is installed. I haven't pushed it on. Yes, okay, well that was relatively pain-free. Let's just give it a push and put it on. all 3 hands are installed, and you can see it's got a nice smooth sweep. What we can do is we can remove this stem from the movement. There's a little tiny hole. I will point to it with a little tool. And there's a button there that you need to press to get that out. So now that the winding stem and crown are out, we can drop the case over the movement and see how it goes. So it looks like we need to take out this spacing ring and just put it on top. Here we go. That is in about the right place. So I've turned my cushion upside down and it's in. You can put this back in place. And give it a push. So what I got is some winding stems in here. So as you can see, I have ordered 2. And the reason I ordered 2 is you have to cut these to size. And if you cut it wrong, it's very, very useful to have a spare. So just open that. So I've got a winding stem here. We're just going to fit it quickly. The movement needs a little bit of a rotation. There we go. I'll just screw on the crown. The movement is winding, and now we have to measure this gap between the crown and the edge of the screw threads here and cut that same amount off of the winding stem. Okay, so the crown just slips out, and I'm going to unscrew it and mark 4 millimeters. Okay, so I've marked the winding stem just under 4 millimeters, so we'll need to file it down after I cut it, which is why I've done slightly less. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut it right now. So I'm going to move the movement very far out of the way, so this piece of metal doesn't go in there. And here we go. Let's make sure we've got it central. It's also a good idea closing your eyes when you do that in case this little piece flies. Okay, so now this is cut to size and filed down. We can screw back on this crown here and we will reinstall it in the movement. So I've just lined it up and we're going to screw it on. And if this is correct, then what we will do is we'll take it off again and put some thread lock on there so that it doesn't unscrew while we're winding or changing the time. I've got my movement and watch case here. And we're just going to push it in. You need to rotate it a little bit when you do that so it fits, but it's in now. So what I'm going to do is just check that I can push it in and give it a screw. It's much easier when you're not wearing these finger cots, but that seems to be screwed into place. So the crown is locked down. There we go. Now let's see if we can unscrew it and change the time. Okay, now I've pulled it out and I can push it back in. 1 stop, 2, yes. So this is about the right length. In the interest of time, I'm just going to put this all back together and we have a working watch, and I will come back with some thread lock later. This is all screwed on now. I use this little ball tool to do it, and we have our watch. The last thing to do is to put on the bezel, so I'm just going to do that quickly. This is our bezel, and we need to take off the little backing for the adhesive there, but before I do, I just want to see what this is going to look like, and there we go. This is what we're going to end up with. So now the adhesive is removed, we want to line this up and just push it down into place. And there we have it.
One thing I did do that I forgot to show is before I close the case, I did blow some air in there to get rid of any dust. And that is something you want to be doing very regularly when you're putting a watch together. So the bracelet is now installed again, and I can try the watch on for the first time. And of course it is incredibly loose, but that's okay. I'll remove some links. So I've set the time and the date, and I'm about at the end of my lunch hour, and here is the complete watch. It's working, it's ticking, the date is correct, and I'm very happy with it. Here is a close-up of the watch. I've got a two-tone, three-link bracelet, and as you can see, I have the snowflake hands, which look a bit like a Tudor, and a GMT-style bezel. Although it's not a GMT watch, I just prefer the look of a GMT bezel. I've been wearing it most days for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months now, and it's been going fine, keeping good time. It's also survived being submerged in water a few times, so it is water resistant. Overall, very happy and enjoying it.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing and sharing it with a friend. This was the second watch I have ever assembled, and all the parts came to about £88, which is equivalent to $115. See you next time.